Welcome, everybody, to the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast. It is Friday, April 23rd, 2021. Alex Barutha here with Shannon McEwen and Ken K-Train Kreitz.
All aboard!
This is our first live YouTube broadcast of the podcast. If you are listening on like Spotify or not Megaphone, wherever you listen, this won't be any different for you, really. But let's just jump into the news. Ken, the race for the 10th in the East is getting serious.
The Wizards of Washington have won 6 straight. Westbrook now has 27 triple doubles after Wednesday's win, and he's starting to hit his free throws. The Raptors have won 4 straight. Are they going to keep playing Lowry and Freddie Van Fleet? Fellas, half a game separates Washington, Chicago, and Toronto for that cherished play-in 10th spot. Who wins it, guys? And should we care?
Should we care, I think, should be the leading question. I think I would like for Toronto to get there just because I kind of want to see Kyle. Like, it feels I would prefer to see Kyle Lowry play his last game as a Raptor in the playoffs, or at least a play-in game. You know, a game that means something. Instead
you think
of
he leaves the Raptors this offseason? Ooh, I think they overpay him. I think they overpay him to stay. But go.
I don't know. See, I don't know if they're as an organization if they're ready to move on entirely, or they're just punting this specific year. I think that's kind of the question there. But I don't know. What do you think, Shannon? Is there one of these teams that either you want to make it, should make it, would be the most fun?
Well, it seems like Washington's the one trying to make it.
And they care the most.
Yeah. Yes, it certainly seems like they care the most. With Westbrook and Beal and that star power, I think that's who I'm siding with. I just don't make it. I don't think it makes much sense for any of the other teams. Chicago is just dumpster fire right now, and I think for both Chicago and Toronto, it makes more sense for them not to really fight for that last spot.
I know Levine's supposed to come back in 3 days. Is it going to be gentle, though, with minutes restrictions and on again, off again? What do we know about his injury, Alex? Zach LaVine?
I don't think we know a lot other than that it's a COVID thing. I mean, so we assume he has it because they immediately ruled him out for like 2 weeks.
Yeah. So
and with certain guys,
that means possible conditioning issues.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, Jason Tatum said he now uses an inhaler before games.
Right.
So, and he was playing bad, kind of, like I'd say the first like 5 to 10 games when he was back, he was just not bad, but he was just not as usual.
You know what? He looked like he had condition issues. That's, right. Like the talent was there, but he was tired and settling often when we wanted him driving to the bucket.
Right. Okay. Probably the biggest news of the day, or I guess technically of yesterday, we had Anthony Davis return for the Lakers last night. He played 17 minutes, went 2 of 10 from the field for 4 points, 4 rebounds, 1 steal, 1 block. Lakers lost to the Mavericks 115-110. Drummond still had a big game, though. 14 points, 19 rebounds, 3 dimes, 3 blocks, and a steal. He's vaulting one of my fantasy teams up in the rankings after he didn't play for like 2 months. And LeBron remains weeks away. Is there anybody right now, Shannon, that you're worried about the fantasy value of with Anthony Davis back? Is this just less usage for Kuzma theoretically? Do you think Drummond is still going to get his, like nightly 15-15?
Yeah, I mean, the good news with Drummond is he only needs 25 or 25, 28 minutes, and he still can put up a pretty impressive fantasy line. He played 31 minutes last night. Anthony Davis, not seeing much run yet. That's probably going to be the norm for the next 3, 4, 5 games. They're probably going to slowly ramp up Anthony Davis. I also assume he's going to sit the occasional game moving forward. So, yeah.
Don't you also think Drummond or Davis is more than happy to let Drummond bang inside and get a few more rebounds than Davis is used to snagging?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think they do fit together somewhat because Davis is a pretty good playmaker for a big man. He has a better outside perimeter game than a lot of people his size. So I do think that they fit together well enough. So really, it's Kuzma, it's Morris. Those are the guys who are going to see the biggest ding. Marc Gasol, but we already went over that many times.
Is there an NBA player where the ratio of hype to actual performance is more out of whack than Kyle Kuzma? Can I stop hearing about Kyle Kuzma, please? He's a bench player.
Some of that's just a function of him playing for LA, right?
That's all
dating models and all this. Like, stop it. I don't want to hear about him. Enough.
Stop dating models.
He can date whoever he wants. I just don't want to hear about it.
It's a normal thing. LA and Boston players are always overhyped.
Oh,
ad nauseum,
So we actually have some breaking news. Chris Boucher sprains his MCL and has no timetable for return. This is per Shams Charania of The Athletic and Stadium. It says
hello, Aaron Baines, baby.
Yeah, yeah. That's kind of what I'm getting to. Is what do we expect? Is this just Kem Birch time?
Yes.
Freddie,
which tree groweth?
Well, they had their is it Gillespie? I don't know how you even pronounce the third center's name for them. But he's been playing like 17 minutes a game. He's got a block and a half. Like, it could be him, Kem Birch. They might just send Aaron Baines home.
Well, they also like Anunoby playing some minutes at the 5. Whether that makes sense or not, it's debatable, but they may not have much of a choice, right?
Yeah, Siakam has seen minutes at the 5, so they certainly can go smaller at times, but I really think it's Gillespie and Kem Birch is the main winner, though. Kem Birch he's started 4 games in a row for him. He's playing between 25 and 30 minutes each game. With Boucher out, I have to assume he's going to be a guy that really steps up. Aaron Baines is already out of the rotation, so I'm not worried about him.
I think this was Washington operatives that snuck in and damaged Boucher in the middle of the night.
We'll never know.
Assistant Wizard GM.
I'm excited. I don't think I picked a single correct game for Boucher on a DFS slate. I was always off by one game.
The DFS Boucher nightmare ends. The roller coaster finally at least will be steady. Yeah.
Yes.
Ken, back to that Lakers game where we had Kristaps Porzingis have some news.
Yeah, he limped off in the third quarter with a sprained ankle. I think he's officially game time decision. We're not sure how it's going to affect their matchup. He's played in only 39 of Dallas's 58 games. The Mavericks are 7th in the West. There are some trade deadline rumors about Porzingis a few month or so ago. Gents, this is obviously Luka's team. Assuming a first-round flameout for the Mavs, where does Dallas go from here? The Unicorn's only 25 years old. If you're running the Mavericks for next season, what's your big move?
I mean, I like Porzingis and Luka together. I think it makes sense, right, on the court. It's kind of like LeBron and AD to some extent. But his injuries are becoming like a real problem. And he was already, this is kind of how, teams were already wary of him because of his injury situation. So, I wouldn't be afraid to shop him. Like, I think you have to at least take offers for him because there may be a franchise desperate enough to take a chance. It's just, it feels like you're not going to get like 100 cents on the dollar for him. You're probably, you're getting not something as good back.
You almost wish the prior worst run Knicks were still really badly run because they might make a terrible move to bring him back. But Tibbs is not going to make that foolish call.
Yeah, kind of like how they brought Tim Hardaway Jr. back after initially having him.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I think the key for the Mavericks is just going to be finding those other, third and fourth tier pieces. The guy, like an upgrade over Tim Hardaway Jr. or Josh Richardson, and getting creative by trading draft picks and salary to get a player who's kind of unwanted at their current team that you basically mortgage future, probably packaging multiple draft picks and do something like Milwaukee did for Drew Holiday.
Do you think they regret the Richardson Curry deal? I mean, Seth Curry hasn't been particularly healthy this season, so maybe not, but I feel like they need more shooting, and they lost shooting when they brought in Richardson.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll kind of know in the playoffs because, what he brings is more defense. And I think they were a team that definitely needed defense because you figure Luka can just by himself give you a top 10 offense, maybe even a top 5 offense. And if you surround him with defensive players, that will help.
Good point. Alex, take us to the news out of Atlanta.
Yeah, yesterday an MRI revealed a grade 2 lateral ankle sprain for Trae Young. We don't really have a return timetable for him. So if you go on the RotoWire website, it says we hope he returns on the 26th. That's optimistic. We just don't know. So Atlanta is currently tied for 5th in the East with Boston. Hawks lost in overtime last night to the Knicks. Ken, the 4-5 matchup between Atlanta and Boston. Would you be worried in the slightest to see a fully healthy Atlanta in the first round?
Sure. I mean, anytime Trae Young is on a hot streak, you got to be concerned. The way Bogdanovich is playing lately, I like that a lot. I like Nate McMillan. The coaching moves he's done have all worked very well. You asked me who I'd rather the Celtics play. Is that where you're going?
You could, yeah. I mean, if you have to play Atlanta or New York or Miami, I mean, Indiana, who do you want?
Well, I'd love to have Indiana.
Okay,
because they're banged up, but I fear any team getting beat up by Tibbs's defense in the playoffs. I feel like whoever faces the Knicks in that slow down, grinded out style of the old 90s, I wouldn't want to deal with. I expect the inexperienced kids of the Hawks to kind of fold a little more in the playoffs. But Shannon, you're shaking your head.
No, I don't think the Knicks are going to make any noise in the playoffs. I think the teams will be able to center in on Randall, shut him down, and that's going to shut the Knicks down. I'm not worried. I mean, I agree they're going to play hard, they're going to play good defense, but I don't expect them to make any noise. I think they're a first round out.
Well, hey, back to the Young injury though, with Young out, and maybe it's just 2 games, maybe it's 6. Who gets the biggest boost on this Hawks depth chart?
Let's talk about that Young injury. Doing a very quick Google search, grade 2 ankle sprains. I'm seeing anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks. It could be shorter than that. We don't know for certain. But I mean, if you're entering your fantasy playoffs, if this is the first week of your fantasy playoffs coming up, or you're in your second week, I think it's safe to drop Trae Young. I don't see him coming back in 2 weeks. I think it's probably closer to 3 or 4, or they'll try to time it so he plays like 1 or 2 games before the playoffs. It's probably going to be minimal. So I would say, Brandon Goodwin is the obvious pickup. He'll probably step into the starting point guard role. He did that recently when Young missed a couple games, and he posted, I think, back-to-back 30-point fantasy outings. And then Lou Williams is another guy who should see an increased role. But the really exciting player for me is if you have Bogdanovich on your team, he's probably going to see the biggest boost. And I think that's what we saw. He had a couple monster games with Young out earlier this month.
Nice.
Yeah, Ken, let's move on to the Knicks.
Well, I think we just need to show some love to the great season Julius Randle is having, as pointed out very nicely on his Nick Whalen's most improved fantasy player article that's on RotoWire now. Please go to RotoWire and give that a look. As Nick points out, Randle has gone from 68th in total value, 8 category leagues from last year, to 5th this year. For 2 big lottery, I mean, his production's better across the board, but there are 2 particularly glaring improvements. So last year he had 3.1 assists a game and shot a very pedestrian 28% from behind the arc. This year, folks may not know this, he's up to 6.1 assists a game, and he's shooting an eye-popping 41% from behind the 3-point line. 41%. I have this written in the notes, though, Shannon, you already answered. So I guess I'll ask Alex. Alex, what do you see the Knicks doing in the playoffs?
I assume they'll lose in the first round, but some of it depends on who they get. Like, I think if they somehow lucked into getting Charlotte, I think they could beat Charlotte. Same goes maybe Indiana. It's tough, but I'm assuming that so many of these teams are bunched up, right? I mean, LaMelo Ball is coming back soon. Jaylen Brown's got a shoulder injury for Boston. Miami's kind of still hurt. They're not playing well. I
think the only team in the top 9 that I think the Knicks would beat is Charlotte. I think just because the betting, the way the bets are going to be placed, it's possible the Knicks will be favored. I'm not sure, but as far as who I would pick any of those other than Charlotte. You can be Indiana, Miami, Boston, Atlanta. Assuming those teams are healthy. We don't even have to discuss the top 3, but you give me any of those other teams outside of Charlotte, if they're healthy, I would favor them over the Knicks.
If Trae Young is injured or maybe even fully out, you still like the Hawks over the Knicks?
I do not.
Okay.
Yep. If healthy.
Okay.
We had Wendell Carter Jr. miss last night's game due to right ankle soreness, which allowed Mo Bamba to make his first start since December of 2018, which was a shocking fact.
Great drafting magic.
He actually had a good game in this one, but Wendell Carter Jr. over the last 5 games, 16 points, 10 rebounds, 2 assists, steal and a half, shooting 61% from the field. But for next year, who is the top Magic player? Is Markelle Fultz? You have Cole Anthony kind of emerging, Chuma Okeke. Jonathan Isaac has a good shot of being the number 1 guy. What do you guys think? What's your first reaction on that?
I think Isaac has the most upside, but we know how Coach Steve Clifford loves his bigs. Wendell Carter turned 22 last week. There's still plenty of upside. Maybe it's a health issue, but I feel like actually with Clifford as the coach, Carter's the safest choice, but Isaac has the most upside because he's like 9'10" with a 12-foot wingspan.
I'll agree with that assessment. I definitely, from a fantasy perspective, I like Isaac the most. Obviously, the health issues with him and just the fact that he hasn't been able to put together a complete season, is worrisome. I want to see if our boy Wendell Carter and Mo Bamba can actually play some minutes together. I think it's somewhat possible with the way Mo Bamba likes to hang around the 3-point arc on offense. But I don't know if they're there yet. It would be pretty insane if they had a front line of Isaac, Bamba, and Carter all starting. Just a block party. I'd love to see that, but who knows? I think the guard rotation is certainly interesting as well. And
to your point of playing together, you think Cole Anthony and Markelle Fultz play well together or not?
That's a tough one as well. And I think you also have to consider RJ Hampton. It's going to be interesting because I think they might be paired. One of those two paired with RJ Hampton might be the better fit, at least on paper. But I think it's very much going to be to be determined. And it's going to be tough for me to commit to any of those 3 guys in fantasy next year, unless they're coming on a extreme discount.
I can't help remembering how badly the Magic handled Victor Oladipo's time there and whether he should be point or shooting guard. And I feel like they're going to make that same exact mistake. Even though I know it's a different regime, I worry they'll have the same mistake with these youngsters in the backcourt, but we'll see.
Well, I can tell you that neither Cole Anthony or Markelle Fultz should ever have a shooting in the name of their position.
Fair.
Cole, I think he can maybe get scoring guard, right? He's just like,
yes.
Okay, Ken, let's jump to the fan feedback / fan questions portion of the podcast.
Yeah, shout out to superfan Mr. Power Metal, who wanted to say hello to former third amigo DJ Trainer. Now that's a fan when you know the roster history of the Friday Fantasy Basketball Pod. Just for fans, they should know DJ's still with RotoWire. We didn't put him down, but he got promoted to a behind-the-scenes management gig. Anyway, Power Metal's question for Shannon: does he like Malachi Flynn or Kilian Hayes for rest of season?
I think I'm in the minority here, and I am being a fanboy, but for me, it's Kilian Hayes. I just think that it's too risky with Flynn. Now that Fred VanVleet and Lowry are both back, and I understand they'll probably get some rest days. I just think Flynn's production is going to be too up and down. I know when Hayes does play, he's going to see big minutes. And I still think that the Pistons are going to go to a rotation that's more, instead of going every other game like they have this week, essentially Hayes starts, then he sits a game, starts, sits a game, starts. I think they're going to go and it'll be, 80% of the games he's in there starting for the stretch, for the final stretch here this season. They need to get him the minutes and the experience.
Yeah, I mean, Shannon, you don't have to say it's like a fanboy take because you might be the only person watching the Pistons. You're actually the head scout of the Detroit Pistons. So this is inside access. Yeah, I think Shannon's right though. The main thing is just taking a look at how many back-to-backs the Pistons have, because I don't think Hayes is playing in any of those, but it looks like it's only 2 back-to-backs that are left. So Hayes should only have 2 scheduled missed games. And one of those back-to-backs is like the 4th to last game of the season. So that might not even be, that's probably not in your fantasy playoffs unless your league manager loves to extend it to the last day of the season. But yeah, I'm worried about Malachi Flynn's minutes, essentially, with the Raptors not pretending to be hurt anymore. So yeah, we're in agreement there.
And I think the Raptors were fined recently for arresting guys. Was it the Raptors? You're always on top of that, Alex.
That may have been a day that I wasn't working, but it would not surprise me if they. Oh yeah, they were fined. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
All right, and then our second question comes from superfan Ramesh K, who again wants to know a Detroit Pistons answer. Why the heck are the Pistons resting Jeremy Grant? And Ramesh demands I hold your feet to the fire, Shannon, and have you predict who will get most games played for said Pistons rest of season.
Ooh,
if you're wrong, we'll be promoting you to a behind-the-scenes management.
Behind the woodshed. DJ actually just texted me and he said, promoted? Question mark.
I got that message too. Oh man.
It's
the Pistons. Back to the Pistons.
I mean, they're resting Jeremy Grant for tank reasons. It's just full-blown tank mode. It's no surprise there. If I had to feet to the fire, most games played rest of the season for the Pistons, it's the bidet, Sadiq Bey.
Ooh, not beef stew?
That's a good question. Yeah.
No, I mean it's those are the two. Those would be my top two. But Sadiq Bey is locked in the starting lineup. No matter who they're sitting, he's in the starting lineup. So it's the bidet.
The bidet. Nice.
Get fresh.
All right, well, fans, if you'd like to ask, like us to answer any question on the pod, please leave it for us on YouTube in the comments.
Yeah, let's jump to the waiver wire section of the podcast, where we go through players available in 50% of leagues and players available in less than 25% of leagues. I'll kick things off with Lou Dort, who is down to 40% rostered in ESPN. He's been kind of in and out of the lineup with a hip injury. He missed a little bit of time. And I understand people are worried about the Thunder resting him because they're in a situation like the Pistons where they are resting even their good young players. And But the thing is, I mean, he had that huge game. He had that 40-point game against the Jazz. And yeah, he went for 42
like
against the
100
Jazz.
attempts, something like that.
At least
42 points on 31 attempts. The next game he played after that, 26 points. Next game he played after that, 29 points, and he's been out the past 2. He's questionable for tonight's game, I think.
I say he's especially appealing if you have daily roster moves, because he's gonna have 40, and then he's gonna sit for some mysterious elbow like Rodney Dangerfield in a Caddyshack. Judge, it's broken. Because they're just like the Pistons. They want as many lottery balls as possible.
Yep.
Yeah. He's definitely a risk because of that.
He's only played 10 of the past 14 games, so that's really where the risk is. I like him a lot as a player, especially with OKC sitting so many other players. But he is risky, so I agree that the daily moves leagues might be a little bit better option for Dort.
Also, if you need threes, he just lights it up. I mean, majority of points are from behind the arc.
Yeah, 4.3 threes over the past 4 games for him. And that's on 50% shooting as well. Shannon, who is your player that's available in 50% of leagues?
We mentioned him earlier, but it's Khem Birch. I think with Boucher out, it's Khem Birch was already locked into the starting role with the Raptors, and I expect his minutes to grow. So in his 4 starts, he has averaged 27 minutes, 9 points, 6.3 rebounds, and 1.8 blocks. I would expect those minutes to creep up at least a little bit, maybe get to 30, 31. And then they go with Gillespie or whatever the heck that guy's name is, as the other backup center option. But Birch is not exciting. He's like the Powell. Who's the Powell guy from Dallas?
Dwight Powell.
Dwight Powell. Yeah, he's like the new.
He might
Powell.
be duller. He might be duller than Powell.
Yeah, they're both really dull. But he will have some fantasy value if his minutes pick up even just a slight bit from where they are now, which you have to assume will happen with Boucher out.
Yeah, Dwight Powell at least can throw down some dunks. I can't say that I've ever seen Birch dunk with my own eyes.
He dunks, but it's like he's double fighting gravity. It's the opposite of being on the moon. You think he's gonna like hurt a lower back muscle. It looks like I look like when I dunk on our little kids hoop in the back.
Okay, Ken, who is your player that's available in 50% of leagues?
All right. Well, I do think I'm going to leave the point guard situation in Atlanta for Shannon, but I love that pickup. That was wise that you mentioned earlier, Shannon. But how about a flyer on O'Shea Brissett, forward for the Pacers? They just signed him to a 3-year deal. And this is kind of banking a lot on the injuries they have in Indianapolis. But I also wonder if they want to bring McBuckets off the bench. We could see Brissett start at power forward. He's only owned in 5%. This is my long shot of the week. 5% of Yahoo leagues. But exploded for a huge game when Sabonis was out. So I like a flyer there.
Yeah, this is kind of a reminder if you are in daily leagues, like especially during your playoff, you should be streaming guys. Brissett really came in. The Pacers were extremely shorthanded in this most recent game. You had Turner, Sabonis, McDermott, Sampson all gone. Even Goga was gone. So they didn't have anyone. And Brissett was forced to start at center and log all the minutes, I believe, at the position. He played he played 42 minutes. So damn close. And 23 and 12, 2 steals, 3 blocks.
3 blocks.
I think he's more of a streamer because I don't know that the Pacers will be that shorthanded even for their next game. But he's someone to keep an eye on and plug in when you can.
Yeah, I mean, he's someone who theoretically could take Goga Batatse's minutes, but Brissett is only 6'7", 210 pounds. Like he was playing center out of pure necessity. So
yes.
He's definitely a streamer because you never know with Sabonis. Turner's out indefinitely. So
I mean, this is a team. This is a team where I've seen them list Edmund Sumner as the starting power forward like twice this past week. So, yeah, they're very, very short-handed.
Alex is taller than Sumner, I think.
It's close.
It could be close. I'm looking up right now. He's 6'4", 196. I am basically the same size as him. Okay, so my available in less than 25% of leagues player is DeAnthony Melton, who is available in, who is rostered in 21% of Yahoo leagues and 7% of ESPN leagues. His breakout performance against the Nuggets was insane. Played 41 minutes in the double OT game, 25 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, 4 steals, but he played only 15 minutes in the next game, scored 5 points with no other stats, so that's concerning. But saving grace here is that on the season, he's only playing 20 minutes per game, but is still ranked 107th. So he's putting up good numbers, even in the limited time that he's getting. I think he's worth considering for even a 12-teamer with the minutes that he's getting, because he should be around 15 to 20. He's not an automatic pickup in those, but he should be there. If you're even in like a 16-teamer, he could be there. And I think in that case, he's like definitely worth a pickup because he's a huge steals guy.
I just was going to say sneaky steals, yeah. 1.3 a game. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that 4 steals in 41 minutes is very indicative of what he can do steals wise.
So that might be the safe move if you need guard help. But Shannon, what might be the exciting move if you need guard help?
It's another guy we mentioned earlier. It's Brandon Goodwin. This is the time of the year you really need to take advantage of those injuries. So with Trae Young likely out for at least a couple weeks, I would imagine. Goodwin's guy to pick up. He's averaging 12 more fantasy points per game in the 5 games without Young. 16, almost 17 more minutes, jumps up from like 10 minutes per game to 27. And as I mentioned earlier, in the 2 spot starts he had for Trae Young just last week or about 10 days ago, he averaged 30, just under 32 fantasy points.
Fantasy points, 37 minutes and 37 minutes each of those
37 starts. Big minutes. And those were close games. They were both down to the wire. So he had 17 and a half, 5 rebounds, 5.5 assists, 1 steal, and 3 3-pointers made per game in those 2 starts. I think Lou Williams will be more of a factor. He's gotten a little bit more time with the team. He'll probably get a bigger role in the rotation with Young out. But I still think Goodwin's going to be, seeing good 30, 32 minutes per game with Young out.
Yeah, and Goodwin's been the backup there this is his 2nd year. So he has some organizational trust built in. So you're right. Him and Lou Williams for sure.
Well said. I've got two dull suggestions of the week, and they're both based on a RotoWire.com feature I want to stress, which we recently improved. So we have a schedule drop down or in the navigation on the basketball page, and it's an awesome schedule grid to see not only game counts for whatever dates you want to choose, because we know how critical just games played and number of games are in setting your lineups. But we just increased the feature to highlight fantasy-friendly and fantasy-bad potential opponents. So with that in mind, I have 2 very dull suggestions. Contavious Caldwell-Pope of the Lakers. He's only owned in 19% of Yahoo leagues. He's red hot now once again from behind the arc. He's got 16 triples in his last 3 games. We know LeBron's still a week away, maybe more. The Lakers have 4 games next week, including 3 fantasy-friendly matchups with Orlando, Washington, and Sacramento. My other schedule grid dull suggestion is Dorian Finney-Smith, owned in 30% of Yahoo leagues. Dallas plays 5 games next week, and Finney-Smith's averaging 14 points, 4.3 rebounds, and 1.3 steals in his last 4 games. Only 2 teams have 5 games next week.
I'm amazed that DFS hasn't picked up more of a following. He's been pretty solid. Not too exciting. He's had a couple big games, but
he's dull.
He is dull. He is the Kem Birch of small forwards.
Okay, well, speaking of DFS, let's go to Friday DFS. 7-game slate today. We have some injuries, relatively big injuries. Clint Capella questionable, Jaylen Brown, I think technically questionable. Kevin Durant, Lou Dort questionable. Kemba Walker, it's the second night of a back-to-back, so we should probably consider him doubtful.
Free Kemba.
Free him from his knee tendonitis or whatever he has.
He said post game that he's healthy, feels fine, and he is not. He couldn't come out and say it, but I don't think he's happy with the sitting.
Yeah, that's always a tough situation for players, especially veterans who've been in the league for a while. Okay, so let's jump into some suggestions here. I mean, I think the main thing, not the main thing, one of the first things that stood out to me was revenge game for Kyrie Irving, Brooklyn versus Boston. I mean, hey, he'll have Peyton Pritchard.
He lit him up last time. He lit them up last time.
Yeah, especially since Harden's out, Durant's questionable. Right. If Durant's out, then this is the play. He's 9,700. That's a salary on FanDuel. I think that's a strong go-to option just right off the bat.
Yeah, I like Kyrie, but I like him a lot more if Durant sits. Right. So, I basically think he's like, 40, 45 fantasy points with Durant playing, and, he has a ceiling of 60, 65 if Durant sits. He's coming off a really big game, 62 fantasy points in 37 minutes. Boston's playing the second half of back-to-back as well, like you mentioned. I do worry about Marcus Smart. I saw Marcus Smart lock down Devin Booker last night, and
Booker fouled out too. Frustration factor.
Yeah, it does worry me somewhat. Even though Kyrie's had big games against Boston in the past, I still don't love the matchup. But he, if Durant's out, he's definitely one of high price guys to target.
Yeah, I think. You always have to worry about Marcus Smart when you're playing Boston. That's an important part of DFS. Is just keeping an eye on who are the defensive stoppers on the other team. What position do they play? Maybe avoid guys in that spot. I guess on the same token, maybe play Joe Harris because then Marcus Smart won't be on him. But I like one of the big guys I like is Kelly Olynyk. Going up against the Clippers. Clippers, obviously, they have Zubac out there. Zubac isn't chasing him out to the 3-point line. Same could be said about Christian Wood. I mean, I don't know who. Zubac has got to guard one of those guys. Olynyk's coming off of 2 kind of subpar games for him, under 20 fantasy points. But before that, I mean, he was lighting it up, 30 fantasy points regularly. Like averaging 35 over the 10 before that. He's only 5,200. So
I just gonna say only 5,200. Nice, cheap.
Yeah, he fits in there for cash games, for GPPs. He's easy to throw in on a slate where you might not have Clint Capella. Like the center options on the slate, like obviously people are going to play Jokic, Adebayo. That's another thing too. I don't want to steal all the suggestions. If Clint Capella is out, Bam Adebayo going against the Hawks, I think is probably a good call.
That's who I temporarily have slotted in to my center spot on FanDuel. I've got Bam in there. I am watching the Capella news, not just for Bam, but also for John Collins. This will be Collins' fourth game back since injury. His minutes have ramped up 20, 25, 27 minutes the 3 prior games. I would expect him to play more minutes tonight, especially if Capella sits. And then Atlanta as a whole, I really, I think they're an interesting team, and there's a lot of interesting options with Trae Young out tonight. We mentioned Goodwin. I actually am not that high on Goodwin for tonight because FanDuel already adjusted his salary. He's at $5,000. Lou Williams at 5,200. I like Kevin Huerter. He's at the 5,400 price range. He's kind of been in that mid 5,000 range for much of the season. I think he's going to play gigantic minutes. He's played top 40 minutes twice in the past 3 games, and he'll have just more responsibility with Young out. And then Bogdanovich. We've talked about how good he's been the past few weeks, and he's seen his peaks. Those 2 games when Young was out, Earlier this year, or a week or two ago, Bogdanovich was like approaching 50 points in each of those games, 50 fantasy points in each of those games. So I really like him tonight at 7,500.
Guys, I have a DFS question for you. Looking at Washington OKC. Washington, always a DFS friendly opponent. Over-under's 230. Our man Dort is a game time decision. So who do you like in the Thunder lineup going against the Washington Wizards?
Well, if Dort's in, I like him.
Yes.
First things first.
Yeah.
If he's out, I mean, Pokashevsky.
I was just going to say, you going to Poku?
4,800
on FanDuel.
You have to consider him. I mean, he has 6 games this season with at least 30 fantasy points. That's pretty good at 4,800. Obviously, you're talking about an up-tempo game. And you can't like completely throw out guys like Maladon. They can always pop off. But yeah, I mean, when Dort's out, it's like the Poku show, man. It's crazy. And like Moses, the crazy thing is too, Moses Brown isn't even.
Can we
getting
get
like
that T-shirt ordered for the
anymore.
pod? When Dort's out, it's the Poku show. I don't know what the graphic is, but we'll think of something.
Yeah, and one thing like I was saying, the weird thing about OKC's rotation is like Moses Brown is not like he's not playing 30 minutes a game anymore. Him and Tony Bradley are like splitting time now, which is bizarre.
Yes,
I don't know,
it is.
Shannon. Do you have any other inputs on the OKC situation, whether it be Moses Brown?
It's tough. A week or two ago, with Moses Brown at 5,700, I would have been all over that. But past 3 games, 20, 16, and 16 minutes. It's tough. It's tough to commit to someone if they're not guaranteed to see more minutes than that. Then you got guys like Bazley. Bazley's looked really good. He's played well the past couple games. He's seeing big minutes, 37 minutes in back-to-back games, 38 and 39 fantasy points in those 2 outings. But he's also priced up now. He's at 6,700. Poku is one of the more interesting options because he's at 4,800. Same thing for Isaiah Robbie. We've talked about him numerous times. He's at 4,000. If he plays 27 minutes like he did last game, that's a pretty good price.
He'll get 8-9 rebounds at least.
But even like our boy Sevi. I can't say his last name.
Svi
Mihailuk. Yes, there you go. Yeah.
Former Piston.
It doesn't matter, man. I'll never be able to say it.
Svi. Just say
when I look at it, it just looks like like a DC universe villain.
Alphabet soup.
Yeah, I can't do it. But it's really Dort. That's the guy, though. That the $5,700 price tag for him. The fact that he's got a 65, 45, 38 fantasy points in his past 3 outings. Yeah, it's just a matter of if he plays.
Check your RotoWire lineups before submitting line. Yes.
Well, it's a 7:30 Eastern tip for the first game. That's when the first lineups lock. They play at 8 p.m. Eastern, so there's a good chance we should know before the first lineups lock whether or not Dort's playing. And if he is, I'm going to have him in my lineup.
Do you know what city Dort's from, by the way? You know what Dort's born and raised?
No idea.
He's a member of the Quebecois, Montreal. From Montreal. Don't hear a lot about Montreal NBAers.
No, maybe not.
Canadian national team for the Olympics, maybe. That would be interesting. I think the last guy I want to bring up is Jaren Jackson Jr. Not necessarily just for DFS, but also like he's playing. He's back after 9 months off with the meniscus tear. Played 18 minutes in his first game back, 15 points, 8 rebounds, 4 blocks for 36 fantasy points. FanDuel was not messing around. They put him up to $5,800 his salary for today. So I don't love it.
No,
but yeah, I at least had to mention that he's back because we didn't off the top.
Yeah, it was great, and it was great to see him have such a great, a big debut. But the 17 minutes is the concern. We all like the talent. So as soon as he's playing more minutes, I'll be more comfortable plugging him into my lineup. But I've actually got a similar guy who the big question mark's minutes and whether or not I like him. Daniel Gafford. He's been one of my favorite cheap options the past couple weeks, basically since he got healthy again for the for the Wizards. Now, is he gonna take over as their featured big man? Is he gonna see enough minutes? I'm somewhat optimistic. He played 24 minutes in the most recent game, 39 fantasy points. If I knew he was locked into like 28 minutes, I feel like he'd be a good play at the $5,300 price tag. But there is risk because he could end up playing 16 minutes instead of 25.
Does this mean Alex is getting off the Alex Lynn bandwagon?
I remember it was either last year or the year before. There was this whole like long form article about how Alex Len was like going to realize his potential, and he's like, I'm going to be MVP. It's going to be like I'm putting up 20 and 10 every night. But yeah, Gafford is someone I've liked since I saw him in summer league, and so I'm glad he's getting some minutes now in Washington. Okay, Ken, I think it is time for your old man rant.
My family hates basketball, and it's a problem. I missed the glorious Celtics win over the Warriors last Saturday because my family decided to take me out for a fancy dinner for my birthday. Okay, that's nice. But the Celtics are on. I wasn't even allowed to check my phone per an early no phones proclamation from my well-intentioned wife. Okay, but the Celtics are on. Now my brother's family has moved to our state from Los Angeles. My brother is a variety artist, which means he juggles, walks on stilts, and breathes fire for a living. My brother didn't even know the Clippers were an NBA team until I bought him a Clipper t-shirt for Christmas. His family moved to Vermont, and this can only hurt my basketball viewing. I need to brainwash his 6-year-old son to become a Celtics fan ASAP. Darn you, family!
I'm imagining a scenario. It's not the same, but like your parents are like mad, like why, like when people used to be mad at their kids for listening to rock and roll, except it's you and watching basketball. Ken's in his room watching basketball again. Turn it down.
That's exactly it, except for my room is the basement, and I have a beer fridge very close.
And it's your own house.
It's my house.
Okay, as far as mispronounced names go, I think, we had
Svi.
Svi Mihailuk.
That
one. I like hearing Alex. When Alex nails a name like that, I relish it.
Well, part of it is that I've typed it so many times, like I can also spell it without looking. So that's
impressive.
Well, impressive is one way to put it.
Impressive or something that makes you question your life choices.
Right. I'd rather say it than spell it. Other than that, I think we avoided a Malachi Flynn disaster. I think we pretty much nailed it. We had some easy. You just have to look at our waiver wire suggestions: Dort, Melton, Birch, Goodwin. Easy names.
Dort.
Yeah, that'll do it for us, though. So thank you, everybody, for joining us on the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast, the inaugural YouTube live / it's on Twitter, it's on Facebook edition. Ken, take us out of here.
Yeah, we're going to go to New Orleans, where basketball journalist Martin Rickman was asked about Zion Williamson. He said Zion Williamson's NBA comparison is a bear on roller skates with nunchucks. Attention passengers, this 3-car fantasy train wreck has hit the end of the line.